What's up, guys? Chris here from Mainely Mesh. Have a nice comparison review for you guys today between the Brine RP3 and the Brine Clutch 3, the two new heads on the market from Brine. I'm working on not saying as much because I think I say that 60 times a video, so let's see how that goes. Probably terribly. See, I just wanted to say it there. So, key differences between these two. Oh, also, before I say anything else, I want to preface this by saying we talk, a lot of people on Instagram get obsessed with this whole Goldilocks channel thing and say their channels are Goldilocks. Well, it's not really a noun, it's an adjective. And I think the video that I put out that's definitely more boring than the Goldilocks video and infinitely more important is my physics of hold video that I did a while back. I think I did about a month or so after I did the Goldilocks video. And it really discusses, because I know Greg from East Coast Eyes just put out a video on channel theory as well, and he mentions the term drag, which, as I kind of talk about in that video, you can break down even further into kinetic friction and static friction. Just to get a little more down into the nitty gritty, because like I said, Goldilocks is not a noun. It's not a law. It's just a theory. It's trying to find the best fit. Hypothetically, it means nothing, because it's finding the just right channel, and since lacrosse is a game of feel, it's finding the just right channel for your pocket, which could be anything as defined by you. Just so we're clear, yes. Back to the review. Got the RP3 versus the Clutch 3. What I think the coolest thing about these two is that they're coming in at different price ranges, so you don't really have to compare these one-on-one. But if you just look from casual first glance and you look at the pockets that I have in these two, these things you're going to have very similarly performing pockets in them. And I'll include the pattern that I used for both of these in this video. This is a 17.5 millimeter mesh, or 17-ish. You could string this with String King. This is Mr. Pink Mesh. You could do this with Magnum Mesh from Stringer Shack. Excuse me. It's definitely a versatile pattern. So if you look at just the offset from the start, the Clutch has the stereotypical Clutch offset where kind of that true offset Brine patent that they've had forever. Same thing that you're working with the RP3. I think the RP3 might slope up a little bit more than the Clutch, but I could also be making that up. They're very similar face shapes, exact same spacing of the sidewall holes. So what they both offer, the core technology, or what? Yeah, CoreTech. What they did on the Clutch 3, and I think this is part of why it's a little less expensive, is they only do the CoreTech on the top and bottom side rails and not on these. It almost looks like a two-part mold, but it isn't. I think that's just how you can tell by the outside it's not a two-part mold. The white is a one-part mold, which is something you guys should know too. For a lot of those dual injection molds, in particular, with the classic case of this for me is the Evo 3X or Evo 3 by Warrior. That with the dual injection mold, it just kind of, it has all the issues that a dual injection mold has, where the dual mold can break out and work differently. But if you get those heads in white, for every example I can think of a dual injection molded head, if you get them in white, they don't have the dual injection. They have a singular mold, which is surprising. But so the Evo 3 from Warrior in white is one of my all-time favorite heads. I would take that over an Evo X any day. It's an awesome head. I have an awesome pocket for it. Really neat head. Same for if you get a Rabel in white. If you get a Clutch 2X in white, it's all going to be singular molds, and that's what you're going to have in this case with the Clutch 3. Any Clutch 3 with colors are going to be a dual injection mold where you have that little bit less rigidity and sturdiness over the lifetime of the head. But in the white, you're going to have a one injection mold. And so it's definitely something to keep in mind. You can spruce it up with all the colors in the pocket, but if you want to buy a longer lasting head, you should get the white version of these heads. So the Clutch is definitely at a lower price point. I can't remember if it's 85 or 95. I think it's only at like 85 or 90 compared to the RP3, which is up at 100 or above. Sorry, I don't have those numbers off the top of my head. So the CoreTech is the first big difference. For some reason, they do have a dual injection on the scoop. Not that makes any difference. They've got the black Brine logo at the bottom. Both of them only have the one screw hole in the back. I haven't used a head with two. One's always worked fine for me. I'm sure the two is more sturdy, but as you can see, the other difference that you can't see now, and I actually might put out a little video on this. So the Clutch 3, as it's strung right now, there's no real flare in terms of top being wider than the bottom or bottom being wider than the top side rail. But when you get this head unstrung, it has a little reverse flare, meaning that the lower side rail is wider than the top, which can be very off-putting for first-time Brine head users. They've had that in the Clutch for a while now. Not the 2, but the Clutch X and this guy. But what's kind of interesting about it, I would have to look a little more into it. What it allows you to do is it actually allows you to pull down a little tighter on the head, because whereas normally you would whereas normally you would yank down on the sidewalls and it would flare your head in. So facing you guys, it would look like this, right? Where the top is wider than the inside. What this kind of does is as you yank down the sidewalls, it brings it all into the same plane, which is kind of cool. I feel like that would somehow compromise some structural integrity of the head, but no more so than any other pocket you string, I think. So it's kind of cool. I would have to think it through more before I made a real opinion on that. Whereas the RP3 is just a straight up. So you can see here it's almost a little bit flared when I use that same pattern, because normally it's a straight up head. The RP3 also has some weird knurl or carving on the outside. They have the CoreTech on each part of the head, although they don't core out everything like the Clutch Elite does. They have these little ridges. Whatever. The biggest difference between these two that you've had to wait 8 minutes and 51 seconds to figure out is the weight and the weight distribution of the head. So whereas this Clutch 3, the weight is distributed more towards the front of the head. Wonder if I can. This is completely unscientific. So the balance point is about there. Let's see if this maps out. I'm completely making this up as I go. The balance point on the RP3 is a little bit lower. That was not very descriptive, but so what that means is, because I think this pocket, these are about as high of a pocket as you could practically put in these heads. You know, it would be pretty nice to even have a pocket. I mean, look at what Rob Pinnell's using. He's using a low pocket for sure. So it's a little strange in the Clutch 3 to have the weight tilted towards the front, dragging your head down towards the front. which is why I put this higher pocket in it to begin with, because I think it's just naturally going to sit higher. Whereas with the RP3, it's going to feel, a low pocket in this thing is going to feel awesome. I've never really been a Brine head guy. I think when this first came out, I didn't say the nicest things about it, but it's going to be a really nice head for a solid low pocket, for sure. I think Brine is really, I think they've taken great steps to redesign the clutch and turn it into a product that's going to be valuable for a long time in the RP3. So that's pretty much it. Both of these sticks are going to be really functional. People talk about how some of these sticks have different plastics. I'm not 100% sure about that. I think they have different finishes. I mean, a lot of when people are like, oh, this one's more rigid, well, that's because of the way the sidewall struts are set up. That's just an engineering thing. So I don't know if they use a different plastic. You know, the RP3 plastic might be a nicer plastic. Although with STX they have the ACP technology for some of their heads and not for others. Regardless, this head is going to give you a little bit more performance. This head is going to be just fine. So cool stuff from Brine. I'm excited to check out their Triumph head as well. Looks to be pretty similar to the Edge. I think they just kind of shored up some of the holes that were in some of their previous products. So need to see them stepping up their game a bit, just as Warrior's stepping up theirs. I don't know how much overlap they have in designers, but that's pretty much. Oh, I should give you the pattern for these because they're awesome patterns. So a little funky though. So it's a 9-diamond top string through the second. I'll show you on the white one because it stands out a little more. Through the second sidewall hole. So see, I skipped that. I put the triangle through the top one. I put it on the second one on that head. And then you're going to skip. You're going to tie the first 10-diamond row to the fourth hole. Skip, anchor knot, skip, anchor knot, skip. This is a double interlock, so you just do 2 interlocks through the same mesh hole, through the same sidewall hole. Skip, stacked SI, tie, 1, 1, and then 1 while skipping a hole, tie, and 1 to tie off. With this is kind of important actually, the throat string going through that same 10-diamond row. As you can see there, which I don't always do. I usually go through the 9-diamond. I'm also coming to like these braided nylons. This isn't braided nylon. It's 2 nylons through the same hole, through the same row of mesh. But that's that. Neat products coming from Brine. It's also nice for me to see that they have these different, I think a lot of companies are picking up on the different price levels. Neat stuff. Tell me what you guys think. Anything you'd like to see in the future in the comments below. Hope you guys, also, reminder once again, please watch the Physics of Hold video. It's very important. And then you guys can put to rest this whole mythical notion of a checkbox besides the Goldilocks theory on your pockets, because we all know that's not really what it's all about. So thanks so much, guys. Time for me to turn down my brain. It's been a very active day, mentally, not physically. Mia, is there anything you'd like to say to them? Mia, come here. Mia doesn't want to talk to you guys. Sorry. I'll catch you guys next time.